Good
morning, everybody. It's very good to see so many people who have broken their tryst with the Sunday newspapers at a time when Sunday newspapers are unusually exciting. As I came in, the announcer on Radio 4 was linking the scandals in the House of Parliament with the Russian Revolution. And said that this was a great moment of political and feminist challenges against patriarchy. So here we are. He said this was actually, today was a day of perhaps a cusp day for political and cultural revolt. So we'll see. Yes, I thought that was quite something for Sunday morning. Yesterday evening, Miles Leeson, in his very interesting after-dinner talk, his very substantial talk, spoke of Iris Murdoch saying of herself in a very kind of nuanced way that she was for gender equality, but she wasn't a feminist. So I'm Barbara Harris-White. I'm a feminist and I'm a development economist, but I wouldn't say that I was a feminist economist in the sense of a group that has achieved such a lot in feminist economics. This morning's session is about the practical implications of a lot of the work that feminist economists have done. Economic empowerment through work, perhaps also through assets, education and anti-discrimination. So we kick off with Dalia Kidder and Anam Parvez. Dalia is 17 years in Oxfam and is the maestro of female economic empowerment and female economic rights, and has a massive experience from East Asia and Latin America. And Anam is a quantitative researcher on gender, also at Oxfam, and an expert on social protection. So we're in extremely good hands. Over to you.
Thank you. Great. So thanks very much for the introductions and for all of you getting up early on Sunday morning. Our task has been to review strategies on women's economic empowerment and propose which are working and which are not, which is quite a tall order. We've already heard a lot about the global statistics showing some progress on women's paid work and on wages and on financial inclusion. So clearly women have benefited from some of the current strategies. However, for us, the numbers aren't the whole story, because we see women's economic empowerment as much broader and including power and choices. And also, as we heard mentioned yesterday, the progress on women's jobs and finance and other things is very slow, often precisely because the strategies on women's economic empowerment have a very narrow remit. So we're proposing a broader definition of women's economic empowerment, which then redefines what the challenges and the indicators are, and it shows us new problems to address. This presentation is covering what Oxfam and many others are working on to try to shift both thinking and strategies on women's economic empowerment. And for many of you, the ideas will not be new. We're drawing from the work of feminists and economists and the high-level panel on women's economic empowerment, and colleagues at Dawn and IDS and ODI and ActionAid and many others. We're proposing changes in what should be addressed and with whom and how and at what level. And this is vis-a-vis what some of the mainstream WE strategies are. We're proposing systemic approaches with many stakeholders in partnerships, bringing together the interventions on economic empowerment with social and political empowerment, and for more attention on macroeconomic policies and social norms and unpaid care. And we are going to spend more time on these latter strategies as they're newer, but with no disrespect to the major and successful initiatives on women's employment employment and enterprise and financial inclusion and labor rights, for example. And I'm going to use the acronym WE for Women's Economic Empowerment. The definitions start with women having decent work and equal pay and training and financial services and land and productive assets. But many WE strategies stop there. The research shows, though, that for women to have control over economic resources requires that women also have control over other areas of their lives, their bodies, their time, their health, their mobility, their decision-making. So the argument is that for achievements in economic empowerment to be sustainable, you have to have parallel progress in social, political, and personal empowerment, ending violence, for example. Women need expanded choices and increasing power, and the definition widens to include the enabling environment, pro-poor and pro-women economic policies, positive social norms, and legal protections. And effective economic organizations where women lead, and so that these policies can be achieved. So strategies now have to cover a much wider range of issues. Oxfam has found that for designing effective strategies on WE in various actors and institutions, it's first critical to shift people's mindsets about work, a broader definition of work, because too often work is perceived as only paid work and producing goods and services for markets. And we explain what the negative implications of this are. For example, there are many countries where activities carried out in private homes are by definition not work, and therefore labor regulations don't cover home-based workers and domestic workers. And commonly, cooking and childcare and elder care are perceived as leisure or social activities, not work, not valued. And clearly women's self-confidence and agency are lowered when they perceive that what they're doing is not valuable. But then we point out that even though many people are nodding their heads and agreeing with all of this, many times WE strategies say things like, we aim to address women's low economic participation, or we're overcoming barriers to women entering the labor force. But if all unpaid and paid work is considered work, then the strategies have new problems. Women's should include more paid hours and less unpaid hours, or too high a proportion of women's work is unpaid, and men are under-participating in the labor force. And I think slowly there are more development programs that are recognizing and investing in the work that women are already doing, and promoting redistribution of work between women and men, and encouraging men to increase their participation in the labor force. These are some of the statistics that we use to back this up. UN Women, women's total work time, 30 to 50 minutes per day more than men. That's 300 hours per year, or about 2 months of full-time work. Men's work is 30% unpaid, and for women, 63% of their work hours are unpaid. The disparities are intergenerational and start early. ODI's analysis of Ethiopian time use, young people aged 10 to 14, boys are undertaking 7 minutes of unpaid work a day, and girls 38 minutes, so that's 5 times as much. The Oxfam research on care in Oromia and other places shows that the problem is actually more acute in poor and rural communities and developing countries. That's 9 hours and 7.6 hours. Oxfam has also highlighted the less measured time supervising dependence, the dark red circle in the middle. And when this is included, and not just care work activities, women in Oromia reported an average of 13 hours a day with some care responsibility, 8 hours a day more than men. that they have limited mobility and limited choices. So this becomes the case for addressing unpaid care and in WE strategies. So many development actors have doubts about including unpaid and care work in WE strategies, starting with the concern that it's impossible to make change. And that it'll take generations. So this graph shows that although the gender gaps on unpaid work are large, that's the bars, over 10 years in some countries there is progress. The top line is women, so the diagonals going down are progress, and the bottom lines are men, the diagonals going up is progress. And a local Oxfam program in Zimbabwe showed statistically significant change on the gender gap in care work in 1 year. So we believe that this does work. How does this happen? Oxfam's message is that it is not only work at the individual or household level, or having time-saving equipment, or addressing religious or cultural norms, it's the government. In countries with the greatest reductions in gender disparities, particularly Scandinavian countries, the slide before, the role of government in essential public services, affordable childcare, healthcare, and offering incentives to men for such as paternity leave is critical. And we're wondering whether we'll soon have additional factors of success, like private sector initiatives. Oxfam and Unilever hosted a forum last March on why companies should care about unpaid care and social norms, both in their supply chains and in their advertising. Women's onto paid work. I've decided I won't go through the statistics. Paul mentioned yesterday that progress is stalling. It could now take 217 years